Good afternoon, hello, it's Daniel. This is the TriathlonDan YouTube channel, and as you've probably seen in the thumbnail and on the title, today is ramp test day on the bike. If I'm honest, I am a little bit scared about this. It's never enjoyable to really hurt yourself when you're not actually pedaling anywhere, but it is essential. I've been training on the bike now for a few years, and I know how important it is to get my zones right before winter training starts. Not necessarily to be able to push really hard, more so that I'm not training too hard when I perhaps let my fitness go over the last few weeks. So I've had an end of season, not really a break, but forced rest due to illness, niggles, trips, all those sorts of things. I've just had a few weeks of not really doing much cycling. And then importantly for me, last week I've had a good week of cycling, 14 hours on the bike, including a long ride. And I like to do that before I do any power testing, because I feel that you get quite a lot of gains in that, first week or two back training. So therefore I don't want to set my zones just before that. I want to do a bit of training and then set them so that they're actually accurate. And it's not just like, oh, I increased my FTP 50 watts in 6 weeks or whatever, when you've done 40 of them in the first week. So now is a perfect time for me to do this. I'm talking myself out of it all day though, but I need to get it done. It's only hard for 5 or 6 minutes. I'm doing the traditional standard ramp test on Zwift. So that is, the power goes up 20 watts every minute until you can pedal no more. And well, I've done all sorts of power tests in the past. I've done a 1 hour test, done the 5 and 20 minute, done the ramp test, done the ramp test blind, as in cover the numbers up, and they've all given me a very similar number when I did them in relatively quick succession. So I'm just going to do the ramp test and get stuck in, because it's the easiest one mentally to do. Let's get on the bike and let's get this thing done. So my test protocol is basically to keep everything as normal as can be. You can do these sorts of tests and really taper into them, have loads of caffeine and carbs and really set yourself up for the best result you can get. But then I'd argue, if your training every day isn't like that, you're going to struggle to hit the numbers in those zones. So all I want today is an average result from an average day. That's fine, because the majority of time I'll be training will be an average day. So I just need to be setting some realistic zones. Now I know there's the argument of how accurate is a ramp test to indicate a FTP or whatever. I find it's pretty accurate for me, in that the result is similar to what I can do for an hour if I do a 1 hour max effort, and equally the zones are pretty good for me, so I don't find it an issue. So that's the reason why I'm sticking to this sort of test. In terms of what you're trying to test, the further away you get from that, the less accurate it's going to be. So for example, testing 1 hour power, well, the best test surely is a 1 hour power test. If you're doing a 5 and 20, you're straying a bit further from that. If you're doing a ramp test, you're straying a bit further from that. So there is that argument, but yeah, as I say, I just find that it's okay for me, so that's why I'm doing it. I'm keeping what I can the same, and I'm training in the evening. I haven't done anything today daytime training wise. I've just had a little snack before I got on the bike, all the things that I would do in a normal training day, so this should be a normal result. So Zwift gives you a 5-minute free ride before the ramp starts, and the ramp does start pretty low for me versus what my threshold has been in the past. So it means the first 5 or 6 minutes are going to be really easy. So for that reason, in the 5-minute free ride, I'll do a couple of surges just to get the blood flowing a bit. Nothing too hard, but just just a little just to get myself, dropping my phone, just to get myself heart rate a bit higher, and just get into the zone really mentally as well as physically. I'm using my kicker bike. I'll be using erg mode. I have tested my power pedals versus the kicker bike a couple of years ago. It was within a few watts, and I've since got some different pedals that I haven't tested, but it's just never that different and all, not different enough to actually have any impact on my training, so I don't worry about the differences too much between brands. So with cycling nowadays, there's so many things that you can measure with regards to performance: lactate testing, durability testing, VO2 max testing, ramp testing, as I'm doing today, and I've done the majority of those things. But what I've learned over the years is it's only really worthwhile doing a test that's actually going to impact your training in the future from the results. So I've done lactate testing, I've done VO2 max testing in a lab, and that's cool. Sometimes it's good for morale just to do an Instagram post about it, or in my case make a YouTube video about it. But in terms of what's actually impacted my training the most, it has had to be this sort of thing, just setting the zones. Sure, there's a lactate profiling behind that, and durability and other things, and anaerobic tank and all of that, but it just gets a bit too complicated for me, and I just think I need to focus my energy on doing the actual training rather than planning all the detailed training. Now, for the block that I'm going into now, between now and the end of the year, basically, I'm just going to be doing a big like low intensity, zone 2, maybe some tempo block. So therefore, I don't need to know all that other stuff. Some of the things I've just mentioned, I am going to get stuck into, but it's going to be like in the new year when I start doing more intensity, when I start thinking more specifically about the events that I want to do and the demands that those events are going to have on me, so I can think, right, how can I be better at those events? Right now, I don't actually know exactly what I'm going to be doing next year, but what I do know is, regardless of what I'm doing next year, getting a good aerobic base in this time of year is good. So therefore, setting the zone tonight means that I'm going to be operating efficiently. I'm not going to be, this is important, pushing myself too hard in training when I'm just trying to get a good aerobic base in. My weight is a big target for me this winter, so in order to drop weight, I need to be really careful with the intensity, so I'm not risking injury, illness, and just general fatigue. So that's my thoughts around this sort of thing. Now, I'm going to put on screen my power testing history. I seem to have done a ramp test or a power test only about once a year for the last 5 or 6 years. I had done some before then, but it's a bit more sporadic. And you can see that when I fluctuated from about 2020 doing 370, 380 in different ways. I did have a watt bike Atom V1, which I think overread, but then I also did a similar ramp test in a lab. But since then, other than October 22, I've been hovering around 350 to 360-ish, which on the one hand, I think, yeah, great, well done, good, but actually that's probably just a big performance plateau. Now, whether that's just me at the top of my ability, I don't know, because some years I've trained lots on the bike and some years I haven't, but yeah, who knows. But this winter is going to be the winter that I find out, because I'm going to get stuck in proper. And as we can see, tonight's result is 354 watts, so bang in the middle of where I've been for the last few years. I'm 4 watts up on this time last year. That's probably within the range of just day-to-day fluctuations, so I'm really happy with that. It's a good starting point. I am, well, just over now 100 kilos, so that's 3.5 watts per kilo. As I said, a lot of work to do in that regard, but this is a line in the sand, and looking forward to getting stuck into the training.